Welcome back to round 7, I believe, of the 2017 Dallas Regional Championships. My name is Gabby Snyder. I'm still joined by Adam Dorricott.
I've been here all day, strange enough.
Really?
We are only in round 7. We have been here a while, but things are definitely starting to heat up. Of course, this is the last round. Some of the players who are going X and 2 in this region, it's going to be 7 and 2, are going to miss it. So if you win this, you can probably afford to win the last 2, or lose the last 2 and still make the cut. So after this, we are going to be going into, I think, some potential elimination matches. This is going to be our last X and O match, I think, of the day. So this one should be really good. These players, throughout 7 rounds now, just sticking up the top of that tree. And these teams look really exciting. 100% teams I want to see really going at it.
Definitely. We have Alberto Lara versus Austin Bastida Ramos for you today. So this is going to be really exciting. Their teams on paper are a little bit different than what we've been seeing all day, which I keep saying. And you think that something would sort of start to become a trend. But I don't think we've really seen any trends sort of emerge yet.
I don't think we've seen any trends particularly today. I mean, we've seen a few people running very similar teams to each other, but I think that's just the way the metagame is shaping up right now. I think pretty much anything you want that fits your playstyle is able to work. So let's just dive right into what both of them are bringing.
Yeah, so Alberto is running Garchomp, Tapu Lele, Celesteela, Vikavolt, Formosa, and Politoed versus Austin's team of Tapu Koko, Gyarados, Celesteela, Nihilego, Alolan Marowak, and Porygon 2.
Well, we'll start with Alberto's team because we saw something very similar earlier with Logan. We actually saw it in Colin's team round before, but he didn't bring it, and that's that Vikavolt Garchomp combination. We look at Alberto's team, it definitely looks more offensive, so it's definitely the kind of team that wants to take advantage of the Earthquake and Discharge combination. The Pheromosa we saw on Logan's team, definitely going to be able to put down a lot of damage. Something very interesting on Austin's team, though, that we haven't seen much of apart from Sam's earlier in the day, that Nihilego, and we've seen the amount of damage that can do, may just be able to match the offensive pressure of Alberto's team. Both players with really large amounts of damage. Austin's team looking a little bit more like the teams we saw right at the beginning of the format, particularly when the format was exclusively played online in the battle spot. These kind of teams with Gyarados, Tapu Koko, Marowak, and Celesteela were exceptionally popular, so he's kind of taken that, realized it was good, even though a lot of players have adapted to it, and built around that, adding his own twist on it with the Nihilego. So I think that might be the answer to bring that team back into the forefront of the game.
Yeah, we'll have to see what these trainers decided to lead with as we begin Game 1 here in Round 7 of Swiss in Dallas. We are going to see Alberto send out his Pokemon first, that Tapu Lele and Celesteela out on his side of the field versus the Tapu Koko and the Nihilego from Austin.
That Nihilego is going to be in a really good position here. We do, of course, see the terrain wars go on right from the leads. Electric terrain coming down first because Tapu Koko is faster, and then Psychic Surge bringing Psychic terrain to the field, making that battlefield weird as we move on in. Going to be nice for Alberto to have that set up, but that Tapu Lele is going to have to be careful. Nihilego has got very strong poison type attacks, is going to be able to do significant amounts of damage if it can get those off. I really like Austin's lead here. I think Nihilego puts pressure on Tapu Lele, Tapu Koko puts pressure on Celesteela, not quite as much because of the lack of terrain, but I think the onus is really on Alberto to maneuver around safely before he takes so much damage from Austin's side of the field.
Yeah, and Austin really needs to make sure he capitalizes on that. I mean, we saw Colin sort of in that last game. He did end up winning, but he failed to sort of be offensive where he needs to be, and Austin needs to start that off right off the bat. We see Nihilego going for Protect on Austin's side of the field. That's Celesteela switching out for Garchomp on Alberto's side of the field, and Tapu Koko using Skydrop onto Tapu Lele, taking it up into the sky along with it.
Very exciting to see that Skydrop. I like it as an adaptation on the way Tapu Koko is being played. Just removing a threat from the field. Of course, Psychic is going to be super effective against the poison type of Nihilego, so if it doesn't get the knockout with something like a Sludge Bomb, then it's easily lost, and that's a lot of offensive pressure removed from the field. Of course, Nihiliga, we've seen it with that hidden power so far, has been doing well. We are going to see, though, the Garchomp just start the turn, really trying to take that knockout with a big Earthquake, only hitting Nihiligo.
Wow, Garchomp with that Earthquake, a one-hit knockout on the Nihiligo. Unfortunately, we will not see it attack this game. Skydrop returning Tapu Lele to the field, freeing it and allowing it to use a Dazzling Gleam to target that Tapu Koko and deal a significant amount of damage thanks to the fact that it was only targeting that one Pokemon.
I think Austin's been caught a little bit off guard there, particularly by the item on the Garchomp. Well, he's taken up the Tapu Lele, thinks he's going to be able to obviously knock out the Garchomp with the hidden power that a lot of them have, which is usually a good answer to it. But Garchomp moving before the Nihilego, not something Austin expected at all. Getting that Earthquake down, and because most Nihilego carry the Life Orb, which is needed to do enough damage for those easy one-hit knockouts, catches it off guard with the Earthquake, and immediately what looked like a tough lead for Alberto with a switch and a well-played surprise item, he's managed to just swing that momentum very quickly back in his favor.
Tapu Koko switching out, Marowak taking the field in its place, a very risky play if that Garchomp decides to stick around and possibly Earthquake a second time. We see the Celesteela switch in, and there is the Earthquake. It'll connect with both that Marowak and that Porygon 2. It's going to deal a significant chunk of damage to that Marowak. It just barely holds on, but Porygon 2 using Trick Room to ensure that Marowak will be the first Pokemon to move next turn.
Definitely a way back into the game for Austin. Porygon not enough to get knocked out on the field, especially with the switch out from Tapu Lele, so that's really good. It does buy him a little more opportunity. He lost the Nihilego early, but now one of your very fast Pokemon has gone. You've brought a slower one in the Marowak. Getting Trick Room set up is really nice. The pressure is really on Marowak, though, to start taking knockouts. It's going to be able to hit Celesteela really hard with Flare Blitz. Probably not going to get a knockout, though, just to how bulky Celesteela is. And then maybe a way for it to knock out Garchomp. We don't know the item, that...
We don't know the moveset on that Porygon,
That's the key thing, is, if Porygon, of course, has the Ice Beam that it sees, that puts the pressure on the Garchomp, leaving Marowak free to deal with the Celesteela. We do know that Garchomp, because the speed it moved before Nihilego, will get knocked out if it's caught by something like a strong Ice Beam, and it might be a combination Ice Beam and the Shadow Bone.
Shadow Bone and Ice Beam into that Garchomp, taking the knockout, the defense drop from Shadow Bone. Not coming into play quite yet, so that might be good for Alberto, all things considered. Celesteela using Substitute to increase its longevity on the field and immediately getting some of that health back thanks to its leftovers.
I think an interesting play from Austin there. Obviously a little bit unsure on how much damage the Porygon could do, so he double attacks into the Garchomp. It is a great threat to get rid of, but I feel he missed an opportunity to maybe catch a Flare Blitz on Celesteela. So a little bit unsure in his damage calculations, gives Alberto a window. Momentum swings back and forth like every good game we've seen today. Getting that substitute up is huge for Celesteela, especially if that Marowak spends the Flare Blitz into the substitute. It's going to take the recall. It's going to be really tough for it to stick around, especially on such low health already.
Yeah, part of me can't help but wonder if Austin maybe didn't want to Flare Blitz to Celesteela that turn just so it would stay around a little bit longer. We know that Alberto had that Tapu Lele in the back, and this is a great opportunity for Austin to target it with that Shadow Bone to possibly score the knockout while allowing Porygon 2 and Celesteela maybe to sort of, not really do any damage to each other as they tend to do on the field
Play
sometimes.
The slow game between each other. It's not an exciting one to watch, but it is a way to eke out those tough wins. So I like that thought. Tapu Lele, he knows it's there. He knows Marowak's going to be able to put pressure on it, but not this turn.
Not this turn. We see Tapu Koko take the field, which is an interesting play given that Trick Room is still active as of right now. Whether or not it remains that way is to be seen. Celesteela protecting behind that substitute, so buying itself an additional turn if it needs it in the future. Tapu Lele protecting as well. Alberto might be trying to figure out what Austin is thinking here. Porygon 2 using that Thunderbolt to target the Celesteela, so it looks like that was a very offensive switch from Austin, giving that terrain bonus to the Porygon 2, possibly hoping to break that substitute, but unfortunately that's not happening quite yet.
Now we know that the Porygon 2 has Thunderbolt. That puts a little more pressure on Celesteela, of course, with Tapu Koko being faster. It's likely that the Porygon will be able to break the substitute with that Thunderbolt, and then the Tapu Koko might, with the electric terrain, be able to take the knockout with the substitute removed. Of course, Tapu Koko not entirely free. We saw in the beginning of the game, Tapu Lele got its terrain set up, so Tapu Lele, actually slower than Tapu Koko, is going to be able to move first in the Trick Room, so Tapu Koko not in the clear at all.
Tapu Koko using Protect this turn, possibly afraid of that Tapu Lele targeting it. We see Porygon 2 with the Thunderbolt into Tapu Lele and not the Celesteela, who responds with a Heavy Slam targeting that Porygon 2. If Alberto decided to double target the Porygon 2 here, that will certainly be an amazing read. Unfortunately though, that Psychic from Tapu Lele targets the Tapu Koko.
No, very smart play, obviously knowing that Tapu Lele will be able to get the knockout, does go for the Psychic, which would, based on the damage we've seen, take those knockouts. So smart play, I think, from both players. Interesting to see Austin not go for the Thunderbolt to remove that substitute. I think that's something he needs to be getting rid of sooner rather than later, especially with Celesteela about to hit pretty much full health. Not going to be going for attacks this turn, though. Porygon wants to stick around just like that Celesteela.
Porygon going for a recover, leaving Tapu Koko in the open, targeted by a Heavy Slam for the knockout, thanks to Celesteela. So while Porygon 2 is going to take some damage from that Tapu Lele, I don't know if it has enough potential to knock out all of Alberto's remaining Pokemon, especially when you take into account that Trick Room is going to be up this turn. And that Marowak that's going to be switched in on Austin's side of the field is just at so little health.
I think what maybe Austin was trying to do there, we've seen it throughout the day actually, people going for kind of greedy recovers. They go for the recover, their partner gets knocked out and they don't accomplish much this turn. Looks like he wants to keep the Porygon around, going to try and obviously set up the Trick Room again, and that's how Marowak's going to flourish. But Marowak's switch in early was dangerous. It got punished for that switch in, and now it's in a treacherous position where it realistically can't use Flare Blitz. It can't afford to take that recoil damage on such a low amount of health.
Marowak not protecting at all this turn. Moonblast into the Porygon 2. We see a Heavy Slam from that Celesteela. Will it also target the Porygon 2? It does. If Porygon 2 holds on here and gets the Trick Room up, it could be huge. Unfortunately, Porygon 2 is knocked out, though, by the Heavy Slam. We see Celesteela's Beast Boost activate, boosting its attack, and that Shadow Bone from Marowak targeting the Tapu Lele, but it's just too little too late for Austin.
Yeah, that Celesteela actually showing not the kind of slow play we saw. Obviously it got the substitute up, but it didn't spend time getting Leech Seeds up, and we see the power of Beast Boost again here. Celesteela getting one Beast Boost makes that Heavy Slam, which usually does, good damage, but not fantastic damage, really help out a little bit. It picked up knockouts that it might not have got without the Beast Boost here, so Austin just not getting enough. I think that dangerous switch on the Marowak into the Earthquake really almost cost him the game. Now it's facing down the Pheromosa and the Celesteela. Not going to be a good time at all for Marowak.
No, but it's interesting to see that Alberto did decide to bring that Pheromosa as his last Pokemon, and we see it has Ice Beam. So that's some great information for Austin moving forward in this game. It's never really great to lose round one, but I think not clicking the forfeit button in there sort of has given him a little bit of information, and I'm sure he's going to take that into account moving forwards.
Yeah, knowing all the Pokemon that Alberto decided to bring is good information for Austin. It shows that pretty much he committed to this one style of play, and it was all about offense. Even when Trick Room went up, he kind of slow played for a little bit, let Trick Room wear itself down, then went all out offense again. Pheromosa is very offensive. The Garchomp with the Choice Scarf is very offensive. So it's going to be a lot for him to handle, and I think he's going to have to adapt a little bit more. Maybe not go for the Trick Room. He had a very offensive lead on the field himself, and maybe he needs to capitalize on that a little bit more.
I don't know. It's hard to say. He did have a very offensive lead, but that Garchomp really was able to punish that, having that Choice Scarf and being able to knock out Nihilego, which honestly is a cornerstone of his team in terms of its damage output potential. Was really a huge lead for Alberto early on. I think that Nihilego is a great Pokemon for Austin to bring, but maybe he'll bring it in the back. Maybe we'll actually see him bring that Trick Room. It all comes down to just how he wants to play this, and given a team like Alberto's, where we haven't even seen the Vikavolt, we haven't even seen the Porygon yet.
I think it's going to be tough. To justify bringing Nihilego when there's such a hard counter in the Choice Scarf Garchomp is tough. It really, really is. But he wants it because it can take so many one-hit knockouts on Alberto's team as long as it gets itself set up. So it just has to avoid that one major threat, and I think it's on for a winner. It just needs a little bit more help that Austin didn't give it in game one.
All right, well, here we go into game 2. We see Alberto lead with the Tapu Lele and the Formosa this time, so definitely switching it up. Austin switching it up as well. We see the Porygon 2 and the Tapu Koko take the field on his side, so still no electric terrain for Tapu Koko.
No, again, losing that terrain war really limits the damage output of the Tapu Koko, and a very offensive lead from Alberto. We do know that Pheromosa is a good answer, one of the very few good answers to Porygon 2 in the format, and if it is carrying something like a Z Crystal that may be able to get a very cheeky little knockout, that's exactly what it needs. So we know Porygon doesn't have the opportunity to protect most of the time, not something trainers have been bringing, and that just puts more pressure on Austin. He either has to switch or just sacrifice it and hope Tapu Koko can do enough on its own. Without its terrain, that's a big ask of Tapu Koko.
It really is a big ask, but I don't know. We've seen Tapu Koko sometimes run fairy-type moves. That might be a great opportunity for Formosa. If he brought the Marowak in the back, we could see that switch in to take a fighting type attack thanks to its ghost typing. We do see that Porygon switch in, and we do see the Marowak. So a great defensive switch by Austin, but whether or not Alberto read it is to be seen. We see the Fightium Z activate on the Formosa. Who did this target with that all-out pummeling attack?
It's essential. It goes for the Marowak, unfortunately, and that's just a fantastic switch from Austin. Alberto wasting his Z Crystal, such a bad move to miss out on, and I think that switch is just what Austin needed. He does get the Sky Drop up as well. It's going to do good damage. We do see that this Tapu Koko on Austin's side of the field is a little more supportive. Skydrop's going to do good damage, but it's definitely one of those, usually as Skydrop, it has a moveset that supports the rest of its team, so I'm interested to see how much Skydrop will do damage-wise, because Pheromosa didn't do enough or anything on turn 1, really, and that's a big loss for Alberto.
It is a big loss, and having that Marowak on the field to threaten the Tapu Lele with that Shadow Bone is certainly great for Austin, but we have to remember that Tapu Koko dodged a Psychic from that Tapu Lele. It'll probably be on the receiving end of that Psychic when it returns to Earth. That's going to deal a lot of damage, especially given the fact that it's boosted by the Psychic terrain, except that Tapu Lele switches out, sending out Celesteela on the field in its place. We see Tapu Koko return to Earth, bringing that Formosa with it and knocking it out with that Sky Drop. That has dealt a massive amount of damage. Shadow Bone into Celesteela, bringing it below half of its health. I was not expecting it to knock out with Sky Drop of all things. That was incredible.
Well, we see actually most trainers when they build with a Tapu Koko, they go for a very special attacking type, but it does have a fantastic physical attack stat. And capitalizing on that, getting rid of that Pheromosa, really, really good. I mean, it kind of wasted its opportunity, then got easily knocked out. Getting a nice easy Shadow Bone on Celesteela as well, kind of punishing a switch from Alberto that I don't think need to be made. On the other side though, we have given Alberto the opportunity to bring in that Garchomp. We know it has the Choice Scarf, and both Tapu Koko and Marowak being weak to an Earthquake, Celesteela obviously immune, means it's an easy choice for Alberto to make. Gonna be tough to make those switches to avoid it.
We see Marowak protect, no switches from Austin this turn. Instead, Tapu Koko is left to endure the Earthquake all on its own. Will it be able to survive? It looks like it's going to be close, and Tapu Koko holding on with just 7 HP for the Sky Drop onto Garchomp. So we will not see a second Earthquake from Garchomp next turn, thanks to the fact that it is faster than the Tapu Koko, which means Marowak is essentially clear to do whatever attack it wants to next turn.
Yeah, that's really an interesting way that Skydrop works. Of course, if you can take that attack, and very smart training there from Austin to make sure that Tapu Koko can get through that Earthquake from a Garchomp, means it can Skydrop it. It's not going to do any damage, but it is going to prevent that attack coming out. Means Marowak is free. It's going to be close though. Of course, it's going to be targeting down Celesteela. It's going to be really close to see what it does. And a switch coming out though, not looking to capitalize on that Sky Drop.
Interestingly enough, we see Marowak switch out and Porygon 2 comes in its place. It gets the special attack boost thanks to download. Celesteela protecting. So I think that was a great switch there on the, when you think of it as, I don't want Marowak to attack into a protecting Celesteela. Unfortunately for Tapu Koko, it is knocked out by Garchomp's rough skin. So it is this Porygon facing down the Celesteela and the Garchomp. I'm not sure what Austin is going to send out onto the field right now. We might see the return of that Marowak in hopes of getting Trick Room up.
Yeah, if he can get the Marowak in, he obviously has Protect available to him now, can get the Trick Room set up, and then maybe he can, we saw it before, double target into the Garchomp. He also has the option to just get rid of the Garchomp with Ice Beam now, knowing it has a Choice Scarf, not something like an Assault Vest or a Focus Sash, even a Yachi Berry that would help it. If he's confident that Porygon can get that knockout, it's going to be interesting.
Marowak not protecting this turn, taking that Earthquake, surviving with just 29 HP. Celesteela substituting. So again, a very risky play from Austin in regards to his Marowak. We do not see the Trick Room from Porygon 2 either. Instead, we see it attack that Garchomp with an Ice Beam. Marowak left to Shadow Bone the Celesteela. This will most likely break its substitute, but it's left with such little health.
No, and a very brave play there from Austin. Obviously from game one, he knows that the Earthquake with the spread damage does not take the knockout. So he manages to capitalize off that knowledge, leaves Marowak unprotected so he can break the sub, and that's something he didn't do in game one. Now he knows he needs to get rid of that substitute. If he can get a Trick Room up now, this Marowak, even with that sliver of health it has remaining, may be able to do enough. Of course, it's going to be hard for Porygon to get that up. It is going to have to face down potentially 2 attacks, and we just have to see just how bulky these Porygon 2s are this year.
Yeah, it looks like that Porygon 2 might have to weather a Psychic Terrain boosted Psychic from that Tapu Lele in addition to a Heavy Slam from that Celesteela. It does already have a little bit of chip damage on it from earlier in this game. It's going to be really close, and we still don't know which Pokemon on Alberto's team. Actually, wait, never mind. We saw the Formosa with the Z move. We're going to see Psychic from that Tapu Lele into the Porygon 2, and there is the Heavy Slam, but it targets the Marowak. So a very good play by Alberto there, knowing that the Tapu Lele would deal more damage, targeting down that Marowak so it can't target that Celesteela. But Porygon 2 not taking this opportunity to set up Trick Room, instead Thunderbolting that Celesteela for the knockout.
Very brave play from Austin. Kind of backfires. He kind of gets one good thing, one bad thing. He thinks that the double target will be going into the Porygon, so he just throws out the Thunderbolt. It doesn't come in, and now he gets to bring in Nihilego to end the game. So he does leave the Marowak unprotected, does manage to lose it to the Heavy Slam, but because the Heavy Slam goes to that, it leaves the Porygon available to do something. So now a really good time for Nihilego to come in. The Garchomp's been removed from play, so Alberto just clicking in the forfeit, knowing that Nihilego came in at the right time. He didn't have the answer to it. He knew he was going to get knocked out by a Sludge Bomb, likely something he may have played earlier in the day. Just takes us to game 3 in a very exciting fashion.
Yeah, this is very exciting indeed. Austin has really been able to capitalize on the information he learned in game 1. And honestly, with that second to last turn there, it was almost as if he knew that Alberto would think he would try and set up the Trick Room there, and instead just went for the knockout on the Celesteela, knowing that having the Nihilego in back would mean he basically had the game locked down.
Yeah.
So that was a very great play by him, managing his win conditions perfectly.
No, I love that play where he doesn't protect the Marowak, forces the pressure away from the Porygon, means the Porygon can actually attack, which is something, not many players do. They try and set up Trick Room, then attack, but really just being brave, knowing what his team can do, and going in and taking that knockout that he needed. So I love that play from Austin. Got him right back into the game. It's going to send us to an exciting game 3.
Definitely, and speaking about being confident, Austin has already selected his 6 Pokemon, so I think he has a really good idea of how he's going to look, towards this match, which, I don't know, if I were game 3 at an undefeated point in this tournament, knowing that winning this next game would essentially mean I am almost guaranteed top cut unless something really awful happens. I don't know if I would go into it with so much bravado.
No, I think he just seems to know, though. He's bought the same 4 Pokemon each time, and so he seems very confident in that pairing. Obviously, I think what he did in game 1, he obviously lost. Then he decided to just change how he played it a little bit, but he believed in the 4 Pokemon, knew they were the correct 4. Alberto taking a little more time, obviously worried his team's been sussed out by Austin, so he just needs to maybe adapt, or he may just decide to stick and adapt the way he plays it. He definitely needs to be more careful with that Pheromosa Z move, though. That all-out pummeling needs to be doing some damage.
We see the Tapu Koko and Nihiligo lead from Austin. If we see Garchomp now, that could be bad news, but instead we see the Tapu Lele and the Pheromosa.
Yeah, that Pheromosa definitely under pressure. What's going to be going on here is Pheromosa's liable to get sky dropped by that Tapu Koko again, so that's not going to be fun. He wants to avoid that one. And we do see that Nihilego's on the field to put pressure on Tapu Lele. Of course, Pheromosa being a fighting type could put pressure on the Nihilego with a fighting type move, but it's all going to come down to the training and the speeds. I think on paper, Austin might have a slightly better lead, but he has to be careful if he wants to throw out the all-out pummeling, and Marowak comes in again, another wasted Z move, another big problem for Alberto.
Definitely something that he's thinking about right now. We see Pheromosa switch out, so no all-out pummeling yet. Instead, the Garchomp taking the field. Tapu Lele switching out as well into Celesteela, so Alberto setting himself up to use that Choice Scarf Earthquake once again in the future, but Thunderbolt from Tapu Koko into the Celesteela brings it down to less than half health and paralyzes it. And finally, Sludge Bomb, unfortunately targeting that Celesteela, so no more additional damage to be dealt this turn. And Austin really needs to think how he wants to deal with the imminent threat of an Earthquake.
Yeah, the Garchomp is going to be putting down a lot of pressure this turn. What he could have done, and I think what would have been a smarter play, it's easy for me to say I'm sat at a desk, I'm not playing, but if he'd have actually gone for the Sky Drop on that Pheromosa slot, he'd have lifted the Garchomp up that turn when it switched in, then this turn he would have avoided the Earthquake, dropped it and been able to catch it with something the Pheromosa had. Of course, Celesteela wouldn't be at half health and paralyzed, but I think it might have been a trade-off that would have been better. So it looks like a good turn for Austin, but he could have got more out of that turn, and Alberto definitely not out. That Garchomp not really answered by either of the Pokemon on the field from Austin's side. Going to be able to throw out those big Earthquakes for free, forcing Austin to make these switches as well, which are going to be important.
And it looks like Austin has changed up the Pokemon he's brought with him this game. We see the Celesteela take the field on his side as well, so it will not be affected by that Earthquake. Instead, it's all down to this Tapu Koko. If it can survive and possibly attack that Garchomp back, or attack that Celesteela with another Thunderbolt for the knockout, it'll certainly be a great advantage, but Celesteela holding on with just a sliver of health, using that Heavy Slam to target the Tapu Koko, and it knocks it out.
A really, really trusting play from Alberto in the training that his Pokemon have. He knows the damage that Celesteela took on the first turn of Thunderbolt, believed in it to take another one. That leftovers giving it just enough. I believe the health it had remaining was the leftovers recovery, so really smart play. Didn't really have an answer to Garchomp. He does have Celesteela, he does have Porygon with the Ice Beam, but that Porygon's going to have to weather the storm of 2 attacks again. It is going to be Earthquake, we know that Garchomp's locked into that, but Celesteela going to have to do a little bit more. I think Austin definitely has a comeback way, but it's going to be a slow one. It's definitely going to be much slower than we've seen, and some of his very offensive turns, he's going to have to play it slow, bring Nihiligo in at the right time.
Yeah, bringing Nihiligo at the right time will decide this game for him. I think if I were in Austin's shoes, I mean, we know that Celesteela on Alberto's side of the field is paralyzed, which means Austin's Celesteela should move first. I might be tempted to just Heavy Slam it, get it out of the way, and just let Garchomp possibly come back in. We do see instead Celesteela setting up a substitute, so definitely a much slower play, as you were suggesting. Porygon 2 using its Thunderbolt to pick up the knockout on Celesteela, and Tapu Lele getting to switch in for free.
A nice switch in there is going to help, of course, coming with that Psychic Terrain, so going to be able to do a lot of damage, but Celesteela setting up a substitute, and Austin giving Alberto a kind of taste of his own medicine from Game 1. Game 1, when Alberto got that substitute up, there was no real answer to it, and it was a problem. Now Austin's done it, and knowing what Alberto has in his team, of course, the Garchomp being the Pokemon remaining, this Pheromosa kind of in a tricky situation against it, could be just enough to keep it around. Porygon as well wants to stay there, wants to make sure it has an answer to the Garchomp when it comes back in, but he needs to keep that answer to Garchomp safe so Nihilego is safe to come in because Nihilego will tidy up these two Pokemon on the field.
Definitely. So if Austin is able to somehow pick up a knockout here, possibly set up Trick Room, maybe even just get Celesteela set up enough so that when Porygon 2 unfortunately gets knocked out, it's able to just stick around long enough to win him the game. But I don't really see that many win conditions for him right now. It's going to be very close. Formosa protecting this turn. It is not going for its Z move quite yet. Tapu Lele using that Psychic attack to target the Porygon 2. Heavy Slam onto the Formosa, unfortunately. Thunderbolt from that Porygon, though, will connect with the Tapu Lele. It does a decent amount of damage when you consider that it is a Porygon 2.
I definitely think Alberto could have gone for that Fighting Z all-out pummeling. I think we've seen the Celesteela, something's got to give, of course, and it's the Marowak in this case, so if he'd picked up on that, he may have been able to punish Porygon a little bit better. Kind of a misplay from there, but not an awful turn. I think Austin's just managed to soak up any pressure that Alberto's put out, and maybe he'll realize it this turn. I think Tapu Lele's still in a good position, maybe able to do something like break the substitute, which is going to help. So Alberto definitely has a way out, but he needs to turn on the offensive charm right now.
And whether or not he's able to do that will be seen. We see Formosa switch out, the Garchomp taking the field in its place. A Psychic from that Tapu Lele targeting the Porygon 2 once again, bringing it down to just a sliver of health. Celesteela with its Heavy Slam targeting the Garchomp, brings it down to a decent chunk amount of damage. We're going to see the Rough Skin, though, deal some damage back to Celesteela in return. And Ice Beam, if that targets the Garchomp, it does. Austin makes an amazing play, gets that Garchomp knocked out, and Nihilego might have just had the path cleared for it to win Austin the game.
I don't know if he'll even need Nihilego. That was the biggest threat on Alberto's team, and he switches it in. He didn't really need to. There was definitely the offensive pressure of Pheromosa. Didn't want to get heavy slammed, I know, but it could have caught the Porygon 2 with an all-out pummeling. So an interesting switch coming in from Alberto, easily punished, and that's the key to victory. It was his key to victory in Game 2. He removed the Garchomp from play. Now, if he does get the Porygon 2 knocked out, he has Nihilego to bring in, which is going to be doing fantastic damage against both of the Pokemon on Alberto's side of the field. Maybe he's trying to save Pheromosa for Nihilego, but at the same time, it's going to be tough. And with just 2 Pokemon remaining, he needs them to do a lot of work each.
Pheromosa protecting this turn, so I think you're right. I think that Pheromosa was being saved for the Nihilego. Moonblast from that Tapu Lele, targeting the Celesteela, trying to break that substitute. Unfortunately, it does not break it, and Heavy Slam from Celesteela into that Tapu Lele. Will it do enough for the knockout? It does, and it's just Pheromosa left on Alberto's side of the field versus that Celesteela in the substitute with that Beast Boost special defense boost, which may not help right now, really, against the Porygon 2 and against the Nihilego.
Yeah, very, very good positioning from Austin there. I'm confused as to why Alberto's decided to keep that Pheromosa safe. He needs it to be doing something, and he's just been protecting it and switching out. Austin managing to punish the switch, that was fantastic. And now this Celesteela, the substitute set up on it early on, not had the substitute broken all game, has just been really smart play. We saw in Game 1, Alberto did it to Austin. In Game 3, Austin does it back to Alberto. So I kind of like how that comes around. It swings and roundabouts, really. And both players knowing how to play Celesteela. We've not seen it so much today. And I think both executions of the Pokemon really effective.
Definitely. Really well played by both of these trainers. You know, Alberto, it's unfortunate that he took a loss, but he certainly can still qualify for top luck. He has 2 more rounds, 2 more opportunities to win those games, to get that X1 record that you really need to feel confident about getting into a top 16 cut in a Pokemon tournament.
You want to be comfortable on that X1. Obviously, if you win or you lose late in the tournament, then your X2 record is usually very good resistance-wise, so you may be able to make the cut like that. And I definitely want to see, how both these players finish up the tournament, because I like both of their teams, both of them playing very well. Nice adaptations and thought between each other as we go. And I think we're going to go grab our winner for an interview now, are we not?
Yes, definitely. So please stay tuned. We will be right back.
Welcome back to Dallas Regionals with our winner of the last round, Austin Bastida Ramos. How was that game for you? Because that was a tough old 3-game set from where I was sitting.
I was sweating bullets the whole time. That matchup was so volatile, and it like any wrong move on our side just could have gone the other way. Like the Scarf Garchomp was giving me so many problems.
Oh, we were talking about it a lot, and we really thought if he can answer that, then I think he's got it. But game 1, when he just kind of got it out, I was like, oh, that's a problem for you, isn't it?
Yeah. My general, what I like to use, Coco and Neolego, they just get shredded by that, honestly. But once I started to see that I could lift some stuff, it helped out a lot.
Yeah, it definitely helped knowing your Tapu Koko could take that damage and just retaliate was really nice. So
yeah.
Going with your team, obviously Nihilego is not something we've seen so much in this format. We've had a smattering of it, I'd say. Tell me a little bit about how that ended up on your team.
Well, since day 1 of this format, I've always wanted to use that Pokemon. When I looked at the Ultra Beasts and their abilities, I was like, man, I love this Pokemon. I've been waiting for a special rock type for so long. So I started with the team day 1, and just it evolved to what it is now. So I've worked at it to make it work.
So you've been working with it since like the beginning of the format.
Yeah.
Was there anything you made as like a last-minute change? Because we've been seeing the meta evolve, since London, since San Jose. A lot of people have been changing up and trying to sort of read that meta game. Have you been playing that game, or have you just been like, I can play my own game?
Yeah, I have. I've tested my team a lot. We had a couple of events before the regional, and I made some edits. You didn't get to see any of them because I didn't even bring those Pokemon, but yeah, it was cool. My Gyarados needed some tweaking. I was having a very hard time with Gastrodon for a while, so Toxic's nice.
Yeah, Toxic is really nice. It's definitely something that we haven't seen much today, though. It's been really weird. Why do you think it's dropped off, or is there any reason you see, or?
I think today everyone came a little bit more aggressive. People are getting tired of Celesteela, and they just want to just kill things, get them out the way.
Well, Celesteela was a big thing in your matches. In game 1, he set the substitute up on you. How did it feel setting it up on him in game 3?
I felt really nice. I was like, all right, Garchomp, I have something for you.
You'll enjoy this,
right? Yeah, it felt nice to have that substitute because Lele and that Scarf Garchomp were just giving me so many problems, and with that, I was able to get, finish
to deal
off
with
the game.
them.
Yeah.
So how do you feel going into the last 2 rounds? You're obviously undefeated so far. Feeling good. You've got to be feeling good.
Yeah, I feel good, but I'm still scared. I don't want to lose to anybody. I'm taking every game I can seriously, so one step at a time.
Well, that's a good way to go for it. I have faith in you. I have faith in everyone who sits next to me at this desk.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We're going to cut to a short break. We should be getting our pairings nice and soon, so hopefully it won't be too long. But we'll be back with round 8 of the Dallas Regional Championships.